A man, after an argument with his wife, gets into a car accident with a heavy vehicle. He loses his wife in the crash, but finds himself waking up in a world ravaged by an apocalyptic virus. Now he must do everything in his power to survive and escape from the infected people who roam this new reality. Don't miss this gripping tale centered on survival in an apocalyptic world.
The film kicks off on a festive Christmas evening, with twinkling lights adorning homes like eager children dressing up for a holiday pageant. Manel finds himself at his sister's house, where he's engaged in an epic duel of tickles with his pint-sized, giggling nephew. As the night deepens, he tucks the little one into bed, exchanges heartfelt farewells with his sister, and departs with his wife. While his wife takes the wheel, Manel senses a storm brewing within her. Inquisitive as ever, he asks, "What's up?" She drops the bombshell. "I want a baby." Manel, caught off guard, assures her, "Absolutely, but let's wait for the universe to give us the green light." Her frustration ignites, and their car becomes a mobile debate stage. Suddenly, a daredevil driver zooms past, sending their car into a wild spin. Manel's wife regains control, only for a rogue truck to crash into them, flipping their world upside down. Manel survives the chaos, but heartbreakingly, his wife does not. Fast forward a year, and Manel is a solitary figure residing in a spacious abode with only his feline companion for company. News of a zombie-esque virus spreading like wildfire across the nation barely registers on his grief-stricken radar. With a heavy heart, he ventures into the city, passing signs ominously proclaiming, "Welcome to the beginning of the end." At the seaside, he visits the boat his wife had purchased, contemplating selling it. Ignoring a call from his sister, Belen, he stops at a store amidst a frenzy of panic buyers stockpiling supplies. Later, he returns Belen's call, only to discover she and her military husband are being whisked away to an island for safety. She pleads with Manel to join them, and after some soul-searching, he agrees. As dawn breaks, Manel heads to the airport with his trusty cat. On the way, he hears alarming news about a rapidly spreading virus variant. At the airport, chaos reigns as flights are canceled due to the outbreak. Balin calls again, urging Manel to retreat home as the airport shutters its doors. Navigating the congested roads, Manel opts to walk home, cat in tow. Upon arrival, he's stunned to witness the army extracting his infected neighbor. The next morning, Belen warns him of deteriorating conditions and advises against seeking refuge in government safe zones. Meanwhile, the news blares reports of closed borders and viral transmission videos. An emergency government broadcast declares markets will soon shut down. In a race against time, Manel rushes to the store, but it's been ransacked. Outside, he witnesses a chaotic scene as an infected person attacks the police. An officer shoots the attacker, but succumbing to the virus, tragically takes his own life to protect others. Back home, Manel fortifies his sanctuary, bracing for the unknown. With communication networks severed, the army arrives with a bus to evacuate residents to safety. Manel, however, chooses to hide, wary of being taken. 2 weeks later, he remains isolated, recording a video message for his sister, pretending everything's peachy despite dwindling supplies. Unable to send it due to the network blackout, he fears starvation more than the virus. Armed and determined, Manel ventures out in search of sustenance. His quest takes him to various homes, each devoid of food. At one, he encounters an elderly woman who, confined to a wheelchair, shares her predicament. She informs him of potential food sources she's been observing, injecting a glimmer of hope into his dire situation. In the midst of a relentless struggle for survival, Manel decides to investigate some deserted houses. His efforts are rewarded when he finds enough food to satisfy both his and the old woman's hunger. With a hint of irony, the old woman suggests that perhaps he should have joined the army. At least there, they'd face different dangers. Manel, however, insists on maintaining hope and commits to continue searching for more food. Their situation sees a rare improvement when Manel discovers a house stocked with ample supplies, allowing them both to enjoy a night of full stomachs. As they relish this moment of relief, Manel shares a poignant story about his late wife, reflecting that it might be a blessing she isn't facing these hardships. He then records a video message for his sister, hopeful for a future when communication is restored. The peaceful night is interrupted when the old woman's voice crackles over the walkie-talkie, urging Manel to tune into a government radio broadcast. Survivors are being called to a safe zone, a potential lifeline in their dire circumstances. Yet, the old woman remains skeptical, fearing that such gatherings could exacerbate the spread of infection. With their food supplies dwindling, Manel argues that they must attempt the journey. Despite her concerns about traveling in her wheelchair, Manel promises to assist her every step of the way. As dawn broke, Manel gathered his belongings and made his way to the old woman's house. Upon arrival, he was met with a sorrowful scene. She had passed away, having taken too much medication. She left behind a heartfelt note, expressing gratitude for his care and explaining that she didn't want to be a burden any longer. Heavy-hearted, Manel left the house alone. His journey took a perilous turn when an infected woman suddenly attacked him. In a desperate struggle, he managed to fend her off, and with regret, had to shoot her to ensure his own survival. The incident weighed heavily on him, but he recorded a message for his sister, warning her that the infected now roamed the streets. He realized he couldn't wait for her any longer. Determined to reach safety, Manel set out for the safe zone. However, blocked roads forced him to take an alternate route through the jungle, with the infected in pursuit. His path was fraught with danger, but Manel pressed on, driven by the hope of reaching a place where he could finally find refuge. Upon finally reaching the camp, Manel was met with a chilling sight. Piles of lifeless bodies, the grim aftermath of an infection that had claimed all who sought refuge there. The scene was a stark reminder of the world's harsh reality. As he attempted to restart his bike, disaster struck. The bike toppled over, knocking over the box that held his cat. Despite his efforts, the bike refused to start, leaving Manel with no choice but to grab the cat's box and make a run for it through the jungle, the infected hot on his heels. In his frantic escape, Manel stumbled upon a building and swiftly locked himself inside, his heart pounding as the infected hammered at the door. Thinking quickly, he slipped out through the back where he discovered a small ship. Though it was smeared with blood, it offered a glimmer of hope. Opening the door to the cabin, Manel was taken aback to find an infected infant inside, looking frail and weak. Faced with this haunting sight, he was torn between his survival instincts and his conscience. Though he had been forced to kill many to survive, he couldn't bring himself to harm a child. Resolute in his decision, Manel opted to take a small boat from the ship and leave, his heart heavy but his spirit unbroken. As Manel journeyed onward, he sent a message to his sister, Balin, confirming her decision to avoid the safe zone. The situation there was dire, with many having succumbed to the infection and others turning into the very threat they feared. That night, as he traveled, Manel witnessed the haunting sight of bodies drifting in the water, victims of the relentless virus. Suddenly, a small ship emerged on the horizon. Desperate, Manel signaled for it to stop. Initially met with suspicion and a pointed gun, he quickly assured the crew of his uninfected status and was allowed aboard. On board, he found himself in the company of 3 individuals: the pilot, the captain, and the captain's son. They took him to a larger ship where he was offered food and shelter. The pilot showed Manel to a cabin, and when Manel inquired if he was the only survivor, the pilot confirmed he was indeed the first they had picked up. As Manel settled into his cabin, he gazed out the window and was startled to see a family approaching the ship. The following morning, intrigued and a bit unsettled, Manel asked the pilot about the family he had seen. The pilot's denial of any such arrival sparked Manel's suspicion. With a heightened sense of awareness, he began to scrutinize his surroundings more closely, determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious events aboard the ship. Determined to uncover the truth, Manel confronted the pilot, questioning his presence on the ship and inquiring about the possibility of nearby planes or helicopters. The inquiry struck a nerve, causing the pilot to lash out, warning Manel to mind his own business if he valued his life. Disquieted by the confrontation, Manel resolved to leave the ship under the cover of night. As he ventured into the ship's base, he stumbled upon a distressing scene. a family bound and gagged. Manel quickly freed them and urgently asked about the whereabouts of their missing woman and child, but they were just as clueless. Before he could learn more, one of the captain's men arrived, brandishing a gun and issuing threats. Just as the situation seemed dire, the pilot intervened, eliminating the threat by taking down the captain's man. He admonished Manel for meddling and warned him to steer clear of the ongoing conflict. With the urgency of the situation pressing in on him, Manel made his escape from the ship in a small boat. However, his departure didn't go unnoticed. The captain's men opened fire, and amidst the chaos, one of the individuals Manel had just rescued was tragically killed. The pilot, now wounded, needed urgent assistance. Manel, determined to help, navigated their way to a nearby hospital, hoping to find a helicopter for their escape. As they traveled, Manel pressed the pilot for more information about the missing woman and child. The pilot revealed a grim truth. The captain was a ruthless man who lured survivors only to transport them to an island where he enslaved the dead and abused women. Outraged by the captain's cruelty, Manel expressed his conviction that those who exploit others during times of crisis should face justice once the world regained its footing. Upon reaching the hospital, Manel's hopes were dashed. The facility was deserted, with signs of violence and bloodstains telling a silent, horrifying story. Realizing he had to rely on his own resourcefulness, Manel steeled himself for what lay ahead. Confronted with lingering threats within the hospital, he was forced to engage, ensuring his and the pilot's safety. The pilot, racked with pain, pleaded with Manel to extract the bullet lodged in his wound. Despite his lack of medical training, Manel found himself with no other choice and managed to help the pilot through sheer determination. In the midst of this tense situation, they were ambushed by another infected individual, whom Manel swiftly dispatched. As he prepared to leave, a wave of infected began to close in on him. Fortunately, a nurse intervened, guiding Manel to a safer haven within the hospital, where the infected had yet to reach. In this refuge, Manel encountered a doctor and 3 children under the nurse's care. Upon returning, he reassured the nurse that the pilot would recover in time. Manel shared critical information with the nurse. There were helicopters at the hospital, but they were in a perilous area teeming with infected individuals. Acknowledging the danger, the nurse revealed that the helicopters were located in the lower levels of the hospital. Together, they faced the daunting task of devising a plan to navigate through the infected and reach the helicopters, their potential lifeline to safety. As Manel climbed the stairs, memories of a poignant past washed over him. He recalled the heart-wrenching moment he brought his wife to this very hospital after their tragic accident. Her untimely death left him with unspoken apologies and a heavy heart for not heeding her advice sooner. Lost in thought, he was abruptly brought back to the present by the unexpected ring of his phone. The network had been restored, and messages poured in. Among them was a video from his sister, Balin. Her message brought a wave of relief. She and her group had reached the island safely and were doing well. Just as Manel prepared to respond, the sharp crack of gunfire shattered the silence. A group of armed intruders had entered the hospital, scavenging for food. Realizing the urgency, Manel raced downstairs to alert the nurse, the doctor, and the children. He informed them of the immediate need to reach the helicopters before the intruders did. With determination, Manel took the lead, guiding them through the labyrinthine corridors of the hospital, deftly avoiding the infected that lurked in shadows. Each step was a calculated move in their race against time, driven by the hope of escaping to safety and reuniting with loved ones. As they pressed on towards their escape, tragedy struck when an infected individual launched a sudden attack on the doctor. Manel swiftly acted, neutralizing the threat, but the lingering fear of infection gnawed at her, casting a shadow of doubt over her fate. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Manel entrusted the nurse with the care of the children, urging her to keep them safe while he took charge of dealing with the infected. With urgency and quick thinking, Manel scanned his surroundings, spotting a collection of barricades and tires. He ingeniously arranged them into a protective circle, a makeshift fortress against the oncoming threats. However, as fate would have it, one of the tires slipped, creating a clamor that echoed through the hospital's corridors. The noise acted like a beacon, drawing more infected towards their location. Undeterred, Manel's resolve remained steadfast as he prepared to confront the impending danger, committed to safeguarding those who depended on him in this perilous moment. Armed with an axe, Manel fought valiantly against the overwhelming tide of infected, but their numbers seemed endless. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, the nurse took decisive action, swiftly dismantling a barricade and ushering the children towards the waiting helicopter. Manel and the pilot reached the helicopter just as the goons closed in. With infected on one side and goons on the other, the situation was perilous. In a bold move, Manel shattered a gate, allowing the infected to flood into the area, thereby diverting the goons' attention. Seizing the opportunity, Manel and the pilot managed to start the helicopter. With the nurse's assistance, Manel climbed aboard just as the helicopter took to the skies, lifting them away from immediate danger. As they soared towards the island, Manel reached out to his sister, Balin, to inform her of their impending arrival. However, her response was ominous. She warned that the island was no longer a haven, as it too had been overrun by the infected. Before he could delve deeper into the situation, the connection was lost. Despite the uncertainty, Manel resolved to land the helicopter. The film draws to a close with Manel poised to confront the new challenges that awaited on the island, his determination unwavering as he prepared to protect his loved ones at any cost.